Hey man, welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I am your host Chris. Man, I'm excited right now, dog. Let me tell you why. Because we're trying out the new digs. My wife got me a table, an appropriately sized table, mind you. So now I have my microphone, camera. I can have other things on the table too, like my water bottle, both of my computers. Telephone. We don't call them telephones anymore, do we? We just call them phones. Anyway, want to talk a little bit of mess. Test out the new digs. It's actually pretty comfortable. I like it. I don't like I had a thought about sharing with y'all a visual about what it looked like, but clearly I've decided against doing that. But suffice it to say that the space was a bit small. But I do have a few things. Maybe apologize first if this feels a bit disjointed, but I was excited, man. I'm one of those kind of cats that like try the new toys out. So that's what we're about to do. But I did, over the course of the last couple of days, jot down some ideas. That's kind of usual for me. I'll have a thought or I'll be listening to something and it'll spark a chain of thoughts. Maybe related to what I'm listening to, maybe unrelated. Maybe I just hear something and I create a thought or a sentence or three in the moment. Don't know what it's related to, but I just like to play with language that way. So I do have some thoughts, like I say, that I've jotted down over the last few days. This first one initially came about during a discussion I was involved in pertaining to domestic violence. Now, if you're a person who is close to me, you would likely understand that I have a pretty strong stance on domestic violence, and it may not be what you think. It may deviate pretty drastically from what you're used to the definition being of the definition of domestic violence being. And also, I'm certain, I've done a lot of research on this, that my stance and position does in fact veer pretty drastically from the most commonly held position and opinion on domestic violence, and that is that it is a gendered issue, biased only one way, that men disproportionately abuse women in relationships, and that women are always 100% of the time disproportionately victims in the circumstance when we all have access to the same data. We may just not know where it is. But I am working on my now second presentation, and it revolves heavily, well, it is exclusively about violence and domestic violence in particular. So, but anyway, the thought goes like this. Might it not be best to have a list of reasonable assumptions that point in the direction of protecting more people rather than a list of unreasonable assumptions that unequitably protects fewer people? If you follow what that means at all, good. If not, I'll break it down for you. So, might not it be best to have a list of reasonable assumptions that point in the direction of protecting more people? Meaning, why cannot we agree that, especially with, I mean, you can apply this as a thought experiment to anything. It may be politics, issues with relationships like domestic violence, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think the application for at least those two topics is pretty seamless. But no, even if you have an incredibly biased position on domestic violence, and especially the more commonly held one, like I said a minute ago, that as a gendered issue, which it isn't, but as a gendered issue, that men are disproportionately perpetrators of domestic violence in relationships, and that women are disproportionately victims in relationships of domestic violence. Wouldn't it then, in my mind, this just makes sense to have reasonable assumptions, as we do with any other thing pertaining to human beings at all. Most any other thing is that, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, that most of us, men and women, children, all have more good in us than bad. So why does that change in some people's minds when it comes to domestic violence? And I will unpack a lot of the larger issues and more nuanced and contextually related issues to this topic. Maybe not when I'm actually done with the presentation, but when I'm closer and I have some brighter lines around what the form that I want it to take. Because I want it to be informative and not as cumbersome as some of the things that I've done. But anyway, like I say, pointing in the direction of protecting more people rather than a list of unreasonable assumptions that inequitably protect fewer people, like we do right now. We have a list of really unreasonable assumptions, presuming that all men are inherently violent, and especially towards women in relationships, and that we have this weird baked in our DNA desire for power and control over the women in our relationships, which is wacky. I mean, just as an anecdotal reference, you can look at my relationship and be like, yeah, that ain't true. But I think just as a logical, from a logical framework, it doesn't make any sense in my mind, especially with something that is said to, for so many people, create a desire and a need to have solutions and treatments and resolutions, peaceful, where people don't get hurt and people don't lose their jobs and people don't lose their families and people don't lose their homes and they're not socially damaged and their reputations aren't tarnished by just simple allegations. Not simple, but simply by allegations alone, which is pretty patent standard of what we see happen. And disproportionately, men are impacted by allegations alone. Just as a societal norm in our legal system, the framework is set up so that it's not one that's going to protect men, either within the context of innocent until proven guilty or male victims of domestic violence. That's something we can unpack later. But anyway, in my mind, that thought made a lot of sense. So I'll repeat it one more time so you can hear it all together. Might not it be best to have a list of reasonable assumptions that point in the direction of protecting more people rather than a list of unreasonable assumptions that inequitably protect fewer people? Thought number one. I don't know why I jotted this down here. Maybe I thought that it related somehow. Half or no freedom. Which would you rather have? Like Malcolm X posited in the speech I think it was the late 70s, that half freedom is the same as no freedom at all. It may, in fact, even be worse than no freedom at all. Because you have like the illusion of freedom or the idea of freedom, and especially in juxtaposition of what I guess can regularly be defined as freedom you observe being had by other populations. So if you're black in the 70s, that would be closer to half freedom in observing white people having actual freedom as compared to what you had then. The next thought I wrote down or jotted down, I don't think I write much either anymore. Anyways, that's a weird thing to say. We should at least concentrate on focusing equal attention to the stance which presents logically and objectively as stronger or as a practical matter. Just as an idea is what that means. But I see this in particular, so maybe I'm just being a little cognitively lazy here, reaching for low-hanging fruit, but again, politics and violence in relationships concentrate on focusing equal attention to the stance which presents logically and objectively as stronger. Meaning, is it more likely that we have a population of men? I mean, we can narrow it down so it doesn't sound so like, what am I looking for? the word escapes me, and that's weird. Anyway, that we don't have a population of men in the world who, is it more likely that we do have a population of men in the world that, again, are biologically and genetically and just like all other E's predisposed or have a predilection towards violence against women and coercive control in relationships? Or is it more logical that first, violence is violence, whether it's perpetrated against men or women, and the same violence or same abuses that are being defined as violence when perpetrated against women and children or other vulnerable populations must be and hold the same values assessed when they are perpetrated against men. That is like a logical no-brainer. It has to happen. It has to be that way, but it isn't. But it isn't. So as a practical matter, just the idea of this, doesn't it make more logical sense to concentrate, focusing equal attention to the stance that we do for the illogical or weaker stance? Kind of stuff that goes from my brain. Let me see, what's this one? Right. So opening up possibility then, the opportunity to naturally vet each by comparison of real, actual, and measurable data, like real stuff, instead of conjecture, nobility, and quixotic poetry. So quixotic, that's a funny word. And so I'm going to murder this, but there's either a poet or a story or a book about this king called Don Quixote, or maybe he wasn't a king, but he was just kind of the silly guy that had these delusions of grandeur, and the people closest to him would feed these delusions, and he would romanticize in these like really odd and peculiar ideas about himself and nobility, romance, and poetry. So viewing himself as some form or another of hero, when he was just like kind of viewed generally by most, if not all, of the people around him as like the biggest fool. So Don Quixote, but it was spelled with a Quix. So like the play on the word there is quixotic or quixotica, just as a something to define that, like just capture all of that in one word, so that if you didn't know, that's where that word comes from. But again, opening up possibly then the opportunity to naturally vet each by comparison of real, actual, measurable data, instead of conjecture, nobility, and quixotic poetry. Now, why I use the word quixotic is because, again, it captures just all of that kind of really wacky and, as the kids say, delulu. I just learned that. I had to say it. Just kind of this delusional thinking that you are only privy to, and you think that everyone is on the same accord. But I look at the world and some of the things that go on in it right now, and that's exactly how it seems to me. Whether or not it's Trump derangement syndrome, Kamala derangement syndrome, Biden derangement syndrome, just all of these different derangements that people are married to. And I mean, I feel like I observe something happening on like a cellular level. It is wild. And it's, I don't know. I think today I'm better equipped. Well, I will say that if I know someone or a person well enough, then I'm more apt and better equipped today to either look away or look past that, or really closely examine like the kind of damage that it would do in my direct environment or within theirs. And like in theirs, it's kind of like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. But really, all I'm saying is wacky opinions and positions. I think that if you have a position to influence things on a larger scale, that could potentially be dangerous because there are other crazy wackadoos like you who are going to feed into the same stuff. But I think overall it's generally harmless. And like I say, if I have an affinity for a person, I think today largely more capable of looking past that stuff. But I'm still going to call you a fucking nut job. Like, you know, but that's one of the cooler things about liberty, right? And the grander things about this country anyways. Yeah, man, we have the right to think and act in silly ways, and some of those are potentially dangerous if you know, whatever happens, but largely I think that's probably the best way. You know, you have to have all of these converging, conflicting, and, you know, opposite and wacky and like total one end of the spectrum and middle of the road perspectives and experiences to, I don't know, is it the most efficient way to flush things out? No, but maybe we're not all computers. Who knows? But as far as like the human experience goes, I think this is the most equitable way that we know of right now. So carry on, Don Quixotes of the world, with your weirdo shit. I mean, I know for sure that I say some shit that just blows people's minds and they can't believe that I've said what I've said. But it is what it is. Moving right along. Let's see. This one I see is directly related to, I actually wrote this while I was in a meeting about domestic violence. But otherwise, these inbuilt assumptions related to gender, victim, and perpetrator will continue to see abuse of one population be intentionally stepped over. A percentage of perpetrators will feel emboldened and protected by a system that has been constructed to protect their best interests and safeties over another. Now, there's a lot going on in that statement. And going back, I probably don't need to explain the first part, but for posterity's sake and to say that I did. Otherwise, these inbuilt assumptions related to gender. Again, so we're talking about baked in assumptions about appropriate gender roles and whether or not it's appropriate for a woman to slap a man for different things like infidelity, disrespect, you know, etc. And do these same rules apply for the same offenses committed to a man? 100% no. Full stop. No. So that ties neatly into victim and perpetrator. These assumptions about both of these roles will continue to see abuse of one population being intentionally stepped over. And yeah, what I'm saying right there is like the abuse and victimization of men is intent. I mean, there's no other way I think that you can frame it other than it's intentionally stepped over. Because let me frame it like this. Check it out. We all have moms and dads, or versions of them. Well, I'm moms and dads or whatever. It doesn't matter. But if you have a mom and a dad, you come from that kind of a nuclear model, family model. No context, no story, no info whatsoever. This is the scenario, and you got to be honest. You ain't got to be honest with me, but you got to be honest with yourself. It's a little thought experiment for you. You walk into your parents' home, you see your mom slap the taste out your dad's mouth. I'm talking about stretched his jaw to Arkansas, slapped the mess out your dad. You don't know why. You just saw it happen. You feel a way about it, right? Same scenario, but different parent. You walk in your parents' house, you see the same thing, but this time it's your dad. Reeling back and slapping the taste out your mama mouth. Same deal. No info, no context, no nothing. You are a lying fool. A lying, dogged, laying on the floor, getting fleas, rolling in the mud fool. If you sit here and fix your mouth to tell me or anybody else, including God, that you would not be angrier, feel more of a type of way about seeing your dad do that to your mom versus seeing your mom do that to your dad. You might be more inclined to not even, you might be upset seeing your mom slap the mess out your dad, but you might be more inclined, or a person may be more inclined, because I don't want to make this personal for y'all, but a person might be more inclined to say, what'd he do? Or you might even say that to your dad, like trying to smooth it up, making a joke out of the abuse. To your dad, well, you're in the doghouse now. What'd you do, bro? You would not dare say those words to your mother if you saw your dad slap the mess out your mom. You would not dare. You'd be more likely to jump in the middle of it, more likely to call 911, more likely to scream and yell. Shit, fellas, you might even put your hands on Pops. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it real, bro. You never know. But these are the kind of inbuilt assumptions about gender, expectations, gender-specific roles, and what is allowable for one and what is not allowable for the other. Now, before y'all get up all in the comments talking about, oh, you're justifying abuse of women, negative, Ghost Rider, negative. I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to put their hands on anybody unless it is in direct protection of your life or someone else's. It is not okay to hit people when you get mad. Have I done it in my past? Hell yeah, dog. I've been in a gang of fights. I used to solve most of my problems with violence. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't even spank my kids. I've never spanked any of my kids. Not a swat. That's not, let me take that back. I'm going to sit up here and call myself lying. So my daughter, who's now 19, when she was, say, about 3 years old, I don't even remember what it was that had happened or why I was upset with her. But I'm telling you, when I say that and this is the psychological part about this for kids, that you recognize in moments like this that you don't need to beat their ass, right? But I grabbed her and I literally, I'm telling you, on the pamper, like that. But my pinky hit the top. She just had a pamper on. My pinky touched the top of her leg. I'm telling you, and I swear to God, it was just like this, just like that. And I said her name. First and middle name. That's when you know, you let them know they're in trouble. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. That it had to have been the lightest pat on the butt. It did the job. She was upset. But I'm going to tell you something. For days, I think like a couple of weeks, actually, and this is a testament to how strongly this impacted me. I felt smaller than this, because I've always had the opinion, then and I do now, that especially when it comes to children, the worst form of communication is corporal punishment. 120%. I don't give a damn what anybody got to say about it. It's the worst, because all you're teaching them to do, all you're saying to them is that it's cool to hit people when you're upset. That is 100% what you're telling them. You're not teaching them nothing else. I don't give a damn if you sit down and talk to them like, that hurt me more than it hurt you. I did it because I love you. Bro, listen. Caca poo-poo. Now, I'm not telling anybody else how to raise their kids. This is just how we raise ours. We don't do it. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's wrong on all levels. But anyway, all that to say, it ain't it. Violence ain't it. Now, this is just a taste test. When I finish this presentation that I've been working on and I put it out, I know, and honestly, I'm working on it for a different reason. Not even really specifically working on it. to put on the podcast. I will, because I think it's beneficial. And when you have a topic and a conversation like this that is so simple, people become so sensitive about and incensed about and can seemingly lose their minds and want to get violent over having an anti-violent position. People get upset, right? When you talk about, when you start saying things like, especially to experts, when you say things like, talk about violence perpetrated on women by men, it's about 28.3% of non-reciprocal domestic violence. So reciprocal or mutually escalated violence is when, it's people get mad at each other and they say or do crummy things to each other, but the energy is matched, right? Like, you don't have one who's hurt more than the other. No, you may be surprised to learn that violence perpetrated on men by women, non-reciprocal violence, accounts for 67.2% of domestic violence incidents. Now, I'm not gonna spoil the rest of the presentation, but I just wanted to hit y'all with some stuff. Now, these are, I didn't make these numbers up. I'm not a math guy, not a numbers guy, except when related to conveying as close to facts as you can get, right? Because these are data from studies. Now, a lot of good data and studies are coming out of the UK, because in America we seem to be doing a pretty crappy job of it for a long time. There are some inroads being made here, but I get a lot of my data and research, especially on this topic, from what is that? What's it called? DomesticViolenceResearch.org. I think it's cool for me to plug that shit here. But go peruse it, take a look at it for yourself. Read the studies. Don't just go in there with an attitude. And tell me. You don't have to tell me a damn thing, but figure out what you think. See what else we got. We got school starting soon. Youngins, y'all youngins, at least in our community, are close to going back to school. I don't know, man. I hear a lot of parents talking about, like, oh, it's going to be nice when the kids go back to school and da-da-da. I kind of dig it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool having the little crumb snatchers in the crib, kicking it with them and not having, like, to plan your time with them around school. And, we have our work schedules and stuff like that, but I don't know, bro. It's nice for me, at least. I think it's cool. Just being able to, be around the kids a lot. It's nice. I mean, it makes sense for me, at least, because I'm sure there's a lot, not because I spend a lot of time giving away time and other rewards and gifts that my higher power is giving me with each one of my kids. So that's where we're at today with it, trying to get some of that back. Can't get it back, but we're maximizing. Does that make sense? We're maximizing. Bodybuilding related, man, shit's going smooth, dog. Steadily gaining weight, as we should. I gotta tell you, bro, I got a really phenomenal coach. And my wife is cool about it. I hear horror stories about some of y'all involved in bodybuilding. Man, some of the stuff I heard, it literally sucks. I feel bad for y'all, but I don't have that experience. Mine's actually pretty good. Steadily gaining weight. Steadily getting stronger. Endurance is up. Sleep issues, they were non-existent this year, which is good. And wow, bro, I'm really looking forward to next year. I haven't shared my plans with you for next year yet, just because we're so early into the off season, but they're big plans. And I may not even say nothing, man. I may not even say nothing. I'll just pop out, do my shows. see where the chips fall, whatever, and then post the results, thoughts and insights. But yeah, man, it's been really, really fun. Shit with work is going great. You know, like with life, bodybuilding, at work, this would be my second presentation. Y'all don't know about the first one. I did another one, but it's unpublished. But pointing myself in the direction that I want to go professionally, that feels really good. Having the ability to do that, and the support, latitude, ability, and support it's been nice. Man, yeah, everything else is Gucci. We're loving life, man. Loving life. Sobriety this year marks 6 years in December. I don't know what we're going to do, but the competition year will be over. Yeah, pretty handily by at least, a couple months. And it would be right around Christmas time. Boy, it's about to go up at Christmas time. About to go up. Yeah, just a little teaser on some stuff and a little teaser on what's to come about that. Like I say, I have a presentation that I'm building around this topic. A lot more data, a lot more insight, and a thorough unpacking of all or most things that I understand about this issue. And some personal anecdotes, like my experience with violence in the home since I was little, and in relationships, and legal consequences, and all the above. My story, full HD, 4K. Was it 4K still, or is it 5K? Anyway, if y'all do it on the way in, think about doing it on the way out. Hit that like, subscribe, and post notification bell so you can stay up to date on all the cool shit we talk about here on the Bees Like That podcast. Peace, y'all.